Hello, I am Dr. Desiree Nicole. My students call me Professor Sanders, but since I'm not your teacher, you can call me Desiree. So today I wanted to talk about grade disputes. I don't really like to talk about this subject because I do not like grade disputes. I don't like when students dispute my grade. So, but it happens. It is what it is. Many students don't know about the process, and I definitely encourage them to look into the process and file a dispute if they feel like that is what they need to do. So today in this video, I am going to go over the process in which I've seen at my college on how to submit for a grade dispute. At your university, your college, it might be a little bit different, so you definitely need to look into their policies and procedures. Look in your handbook. It's usually in your handbook, and it'll tell you step by step on how to submit for a grade dispute. And if you continue to watch, I'll tell you how one student actually won a grade dispute against me over my years at the college. I've been here for over 13 years, and I'll say only one student has ever won a grade dispute. And just last semester, unfortunately, I don't even want to say this, but unfortunately, I had probably the most grade disputes in my division. And I hate saying that. I don't want to say that, but I can't take it back. It is what it is. I'm being very authentic and very real with you. So stay tuned. All right, so the first step is you usually have to meet with your instructor. So I would email your instructor, say, that you would like to meet with them. It's always good to give a little bit of heads up. What do you want to meet about? If you want to just discuss your final grade, you can say that. If you want to review your last exam, that's also a possibility. If you want to talk about certain questions because you disagree with the outcome of your exam in regards to your results, that's what you need to put in your email. Always say more so what you want when you're emailing people, because if you just say, oh, I just want to meet, and then when you come, I don't know what I want to talk about, I'm just upset, that doesn't go well with most instructors. It's better to have a plan for when you're meeting with your instructor so you can at least stay on track and get your thoughts out and be able to accomplish whatever your goals are for meeting with them. But typically for a grade dispute, the first level is what we call it here. During the first level, you must meet with your instructor to discuss your concerns or your disagreements in regards to your grade. Okay, so it can definitely end at that first step. So in many cases, I try to avoid my students going to grade disputes, and we just handle the situation there. I've looked over exams before, and then I just said, okay, I understand your answer. I agree with you, and I will grant you the point for that particular question. In some cases, it don't go that way. So now the next step is you have to submit for the next level for the grade dispute. You, like I said, find all this information in your handbook. When you submit documentation, number one, make sure it's factual. You have to provide facts in your documentation. Typically, students will type out a letter. In that letter, they will provide details, explanations on why they should have a change in their grade. They're typing all that information out. Type it out in like an essay type of format. You can put it in a letter addressing the college. So you want to type it out. You want to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. The beginning, you maybe explain your position on the matter. You can maybe give more information about why you're in nursing school, give a little bit of background information about yourself. In the middle is where you want to explain about your dispute. You want to give detailed information. I can give you maybe a couple of reasons why people would dispute their grade, and this might be something that you would put like in the body of your essay. One reason, you disagree with the answer to a question. and you believe that your answer is correct. You'll put that in the body. So you will state out the question. Most of the time, you're not going to know word for word what the question is, but you can give just in general what the question was. You want to put, what exam the question was on. You want to provide your answer, and you want to give rationale why your answer was correct. I strongly suggest that you go to the resources that the school gives you. So go back to your textbook, go to resources that the publisher provides. If you have resources from your instructor, go to those resources. State up under your given answer those, like your rationale. You want to provide your rationale with those page numbers, with the resources that you are referring to. Another reason why someone might dispute their grade, I've seen that students say that, they weren't available to come to an exam. Somehow they communicated this to an instructor, but maybe, there was some type of miscommunication and they didn't show up and they received a 0 for the grade or what have you. You need to go back to your handbook, to the school's policy, pull information from there. If you actually contacted the instructor before the exam, this is just an example, and there is a makeup policy, provide the makeup policy in your evidence, in your rationale, in your letter. So that's a way that I would go about the middle part of your essay component. So those are just two reasons that I've seen that students will dispute their grade. In the conclusion, you want to kind of summarize everything, wrap everything up, and then give whatever final key touches will be like in your conclusion. I will say at the college that I'm at, you will be given an opportunity to give a verbal rationale. I forget exactly what we call it, but you'll be able to talk to the committee about your dispute. I believe we call it like a verbal testimony. So you'll be able to verbalize what you provided in this letter. So that's all included there. Another key takeaway that I found out just last year is that students can bring up extra information in their verbal testimony. I thought everything needs to be included in the letter. I will still encourage you to include as much as you can in that particular letter. But if you forgot something, and if you want to add it when you do your verbal testimony, you can at some schools. I'm not going to say all. At my school, you can add more into that verbal testimony when you meet with the committee members. Behind the scenes that you don't know about, once you submit your documentation to usually like your dean or associate dean, or they might just give you a basic general email to submit your documentation to. After you submit, that's where our deans at the college will contact fellow faculty members in the nursing division to be on your actual grade dispute committee. So where I'm at, there's usually 3 individuals. So example, you are submitting a grade dispute against me, you file your documentation according to whatever your handbook says, then the dean, associate dean, or coordinator at your program will reach out to other faculty members, not me, other faculty members to be on the committee. So every school, I'm sure, does it a little bit different. So that's just a little bit behind the scenes that you might not know about. So the actual committee is the one that is reviewing your documentation, and they'll usually meet with you for some type of oral testimony. And that's not the instructor that you filed the dispute against. Outcome. You need to communicate very clearly what outcome you want from this grade dispute. Where I'm at, we have a form where you actually have to write it out. But in your letter, in your documentation, please add that in there. Add what type of outcome you want. I've had so many students, they don't communicate what they want from it. So it comes across as more of them just wanting to vent. So if you want points for certain questions, put that in your documentation. I would say for questions 1, 2, and 3, I want my answers accepted due to such and such, to give a little bit of a rationale behind that. But you want to provide what type of outcome you want from this grade dispute. If you want to retake an exam, put that in your letter. If you want to receive an incomplete instead of a failure, put that in your letter. So please put in your letter what outcome you expect from this actual grade dispute. All right, so after you have submitted your documentation, most handbooks will tell you exactly step by step what to kind of expect. There are usually time frames and guidelines that are listed out. So for example, where I'm at, once you submit your documentation, I think the dean has within 7 days to form a committee. So you'll see that listed out in the handbook. So every handbook is a little bit different, so please review that. But to conclude, after the committee has met, they have reviewed your documentation, they will suggest to the dean or to their administrators what they would like to see from this grade dispute. So they will they will pretty much address every single concern that you had, and they will provide that usually like in an email to the administrator. The administrator then will review it, and they will move forward usually on whatever suggestions that the actual committee requested. That information will be sent to that professor that you grieved, and from there, in general, the professor will agree with the committee in general. I'm sure there are some cases where the professor will still say no, but I've always agreed with whatever the committee has said. I never went against the committee, because to me, that feels like I'm going against my colleagues. And if they see that this is what's appropriate, I go along with it because I respect them and they took the time to review the information. And in my opinion, it's more like I'm now getting a second, third, and fourth opinion on this particular matter. From that, you will receive a letter with the conclusion of the grade dispute. If you won the grade dispute, you will see a change in your grade pretty much, within a day. When I had to change a student's grade, I did it pretty much instantly on my computer within 24 hours. I believe it took probably a couple of days for the students to actually see a change on their actual transcript. So it's fairly easy with the computers these days to make a change in someone's grade. But you will receive documentation on the decision for the grade dispute. And that will take the hardest time for me to actually go through this whole process will be during the fall and spring semester. Summer is usually okay because you have a little bit more time. But between fall and spring, with the holidays, with winter break, it does sometimes take a little bit more time because you have those break times where we're really off on break. So it's hard to form a committee and get faculty members to meet and actually discuss whatever the grade dispute is. So if it takes a little bit more time, don't feel like, that it didn't work or you're not going to get your grade that you desired, because it could be just in general the calendar, that we're on break and that we will come back on a certain day. If you're concerned about it, I would contact the administrator. But typically, if there's no breaks, I usually see a grade dispute concluded, I would say at the earliest 2 weeks, at the latest 6 weeks is typically what I see. So it is a process. Please read through your handbook And consider that sometimes, like if you need to retake a course, so say if you failed a nursing course and you need to retake it, if you are disputing a grade, many colleges will not let you enroll in the same course that you're repeating until the grade dispute is resolved, if that makes any sense. Hopefully it does. Because if you're disputing, say if the class is nursing 1000, if you're disputing that class, right, they're not going to let you enroll the next semester. So many times grade disputes take time, as I just said, usually 2 to 6 weeks. So if your course ended, say December 17th, right? And the next courses start January 20th. That's pretty much like 4 weeks there. So it's possible that it can be concluded within those 4 weeks, but I've seen where it's not because you're on break. So if the instructors are on break for 2 weeks, they're not going to meet about a grade dispute while they're on break. So please consider that as well when you are submitting for a grade dispute. But in general, your grade dispute should be concluded within, I say, 2 to 6 weeks. You will see a conclusion and you will see documentation sent to you. My suggestion, so these are my 2 cents. Try to resolve your grade points, all of that throughout the semester. Number one, don't wait till the very end if you can help it. So in my course, we have 3 exams. If students came to me after the first exam and want to talk about a question, many times we can resolve it right then. It doesn't take waiting till the very end and you're literally scraping for grades. First exam, I would say at the most, a third of my students will come and meet me. The second exam, I usually have a little bit more will come and meet me to review their exams. But if you can, I suggest that you resolved any type of questions that you might have before you even get to the end of the semester. Number two, read your handbook. You have to read your handbook. Some colleges will say that you cannot dispute grades such as you can't go from an A minus to an A. You can only dispute grades when you're changing the whole grade itself. So please review your handbook. I've also seen where students are outside of the time. So if they want to say now, so now you're thinking about disputing your grade, is July, for example. Some policies will say that you cannot dispute your grade if it's been past 2 weeks. Some will say, you can dispute your grade up until the end of the next semester. So review your handbook in regards to like those time frames. Another suggestion I said before in my shorts that you have to keep it factual. Please don't put any of your opinion about the instructor in your documentation. It usually does not go over well with the committee. So once the committee is formed, like I said, it's a committee of my peers. It's a committee from the actual nursing division. So just keep it very factual. Don't put in there, that I didn't like her facial expressions. I didn't like the way that she answered a particular question. Just keep it factual. If you need to write out what the instructor said, that's more factual than giving your opinion on how they responded. And let me see, my last takeaway would be when you meet with the instructor before you file. So like I said, level 1 in my school, you have to meet with the instructor. Take that time to resolve this matter if you can. Because if you can resolve the matter at the level 1, there won't be a grade dispute. I will definitely tell you that. If you can avoid having a grade dispute, I would definitely suggest that you avoid it at all costs, because you see it's a lengthy process and it takes time. So I'll tell you, so to conclude my story, the student who actually won their grade dispute against me, what this student did was she took some of the wording that I had in the email, and she looked at the wording in my syllabus and she disagreed with it. She had a question and the question was an open-ended question. So I scored her, I minus points for that particular question for her. She disagreed because of what was written like in my syllabus and what was written on her exam. So in that particular situation, since it was an open-ended question, it was a little bit more subjective on her response. So easy peasy, I went along with the committee suggestion. It was only one particular question. I gave her the point and it changed her grade. She was not a student who was failing. She went from that 1 point change, though, she went from a C to a B. So it did help her with her GPA, and I was satisfied with the outcome. There was no problems there. So that's just my 2 cents, and that's where I'll bring in my personal experience. And if you need any assistance on any other topics, any behind the scenes, I'm more so telling you my experience as a nursing instructor. So until next time, have a good day.